Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where sure enough, the movie news cycle is slowing down as we enter the end of August / Labor Day. It's going to be a rough 2 weeks. Although the movie news cycle did cough up that hairball last night with the Joker origin story news, which certainly woke everyone up. But this morning, it's back to Sleepy Town. But no worries, because while I do have one story I want to discuss, you guys really came through with your viewer questions. So I'm answering not just one, not just two, but 3 viewer questions today. And in fact, a 4th viewer question has inspired a standalone video over on the main channel, which will go up by the end of today. So nicely done, everyone. So what's the first story that we're going to talk about? Well, it's the Forbes list of top paid actors for the year. They do this every year. They do actors and actresses. And the actors, obviously usually make more money. But this list this year, they do the top 20, had some genuine surprises on it. So I'm going to go over what I thought was of particular interest, and I'll put a link down below in the video description if you want to take a look at the full list. They're very click-minded, because it's not clickbait, it's genuine news. But Forbes is very click-minded, and they, instead of just writing a nice article for you to read, they just have photos each on their own page, so you have to click through each one, and they don't really actually give you that much information. But still, it's interesting, and these are my takeaways from it. The first is that 2 unlikely Avengers got on the list. Mark Ruffalo for the very first time, thanks to those paydays. And I'd have to say that based on these people who are on here, box office participation is working out just fine for talents in Hollywood, right? Take a cut of the box office because you're going to see how it's really helped some actors in particular. Mark Ruffalo being one of them with $13 million. That's how much he's made for he's projected to make for 2017, because obviously the year, well, I guess maybe from here in the past, because they're talking, for instance, Jeremy Renner, who we're going to talk about next, they're talking about him with Arrival, but that, of course, was a release last year. So who knows what Forbes' calendar is. But anyway, Mark Ruffalo, $13 million. And that puts him just at number 20. What a business! But don't forget, these actors don't keep this whole check. This has to be divided up amongst their team. They're like little companies, so they have to pay their agents, their managers, their lawyers, their publicists, their I forget the name of the person who does fashion for a person, right? So, the person who's in charge of their look, they have to do all that. They're social media coordinators now, right? Mark Ruffalo is quite active on social media, although I think quite charmingly, he does most of his own tweeting instead of having someone, usually, I don't know if you know this, but talent will have all their tweets prepared, ready to go for the month unless something comes up, and they're just ready to publish. They have an assistant to whatever company they've hired to handle their social media, just publishing when they're supposed to. So they do it a month at a time. They plan out their tweets. But anyway, Mark Ruffalo, number 20, for $13 million. Then Jeremy Renner got up a little bit in the list, number 17 with $19 million, obviously thanks to some box office participation in Arrival. Very interesting indeed. It will be interesting to see where Amy Adams lands on the actresses list. But then next, this was really shocking. Ryan Gosling, I guess thanks to La La Land, which made a heck of a lot of money worldwide. But he's number 14 with $29 million. Ryan Gosling made $29 million. If only his movies would open that big. That's an incredible number. That's just amazing. I'll be very curious to see how Blade Runner 2049 does, because he's not typically been a box office draw. So I'm glad he made, he didn't win any awards for La La Land. He got a lot of nominations. Emma Stone was, deemed the winner by the Hollywood politics landscape. But Ryan Gosling got a lot of money out of it. Although, again, we'll see where Emma Stone lands on the actresses list. And then it's worth pointing out that numbers 10 through 8 were Bollywood actors, and they're pulling down between 35 and 38 million. Also quite impressive, being paid a lot better than a number of Hollywood talent. Recently I interviewed a composer, Atli Orvason from Iceland, and he talked about how movies are made all over the world. Well, of course, Hollywoods are the best known, but not the best paid. It looks like you can make quite a nice living in other film markets. Something to keep in mind when you're deciding a career path. Then Jackie Chan was number 5 with $49 million. That guy makes so much money. And then also, this was interesting, Adam Sandler. That Netflix deal must be a thing of beauty. His representation earned their percentages of his cut, because he pulled down $50.5 million. That's amazing. And he hardly works outside of Netflix these days. And then number one, I thought this was fantastic. Mark Wahlberg with 68 million. I really like Mark Wahlberg. I think he seems like a really nice guy, and I think he's a really hard worker. And I also just like that he is willing to, he just seems very game. I like people who don't take themselves too seriously and, they shouldn't make a fool of themselves, but, are willing to, play with their image, have fun, think outside the box. And I used to like that about Dwayne Johnson, but I think Dwayne Johnson's a little overexposed right now. I think Mark Wahlberg has been a little overexposed, to be perfectly honest with you. But right now, he's in a good place because he's number one on this list. That's very nice for him. So not only did he earn this money off of his movie deals, I guess when you're overexposed, you're pulling down a lot of paychecks, right? Dwayne Johnson was also on this list, but obviously we know he makes a lot of money. But I was impressed that Mark Wahlberg was able to top it. But part of what helped him out was his AT&T advertising deal. He's their spokesperson. So every time you see him on TV, he's making a lot of money. And ever since the stigma went away of movie talent doing commercials, they have been, in the United States, they've been doing them overseas for quite some time. You're seeing more and more of them. It's interesting. Actors, used to be like also for fashion and stuff. Models used to be the spokesperson for brands, but now actors really are the ones who've cornered this market. Very cool. So congratulations, Mark Wahlberg. Say hello to your mother for me. I love it so much. Okay, so let's get to the viewer questions. Brandon Chambers has been asking me this viewer question for days. Brandon. I because of your persistence, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, I've decided to finally answer it. I didn't want to answer it because I don't like pitting DC and Marvel against each other, and particularly in the way you're asking, but I think it is a valid question, and again, you were very persistent. So what's the question? So Brandon says, please answer my viewer question, pretty please. Dear Grace, I'm curious to know what you think regarding this November's two competing superhero films, Justice League and Thor Ragnarok. Both films look great, but which one do you think will come out on top at the box office? I've heard arguments going both ways. Will the great reviews of Wonder Woman and the fresh aspect of Justice League be able to overtake Thor Ragnarok this November despite poor critical reception to prior DCEU installments? I like the way Brandon writes this. Or will Thor Ragnarok be able to do significantly better than previous Thor installments due to the inclusion of Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Hela to win the day? Good point. Both are not coming from an advantageous point box office-wise. Thank you so much for answering my previous question. Thank you in advance if you choose to answer this one. Please bestow your insight onto us pitiful mortals. Sincerely, Brandon B. Chambers. You got away with words, Brandon. I like it. Okay, so yes, I think that neither one of these is a slam dunk at the box office, and I think there are many factors at play. Let's discuss. The most obvious is what are their Rotten Tomato scores going to be, right? I think that's a really big part of whether or not these movies succeed. I think right now I think that Thor Ragnarok has the slight edge because just the way the things have been going for the DCEU lately. But that could change with a couple of factors. One being the Rotten Tomato score. Too low for Justice League, and I think even if Thor Ragnarok was like in the 70s or even the low 80s, I think people would give them pause because people are expecting because the trailers have been so well received, people are expecting a slam dunk for Thor Ragnarok. So if that wavers at all, that could potentially hurt it at the box office. Then there's also the question of The Last Jedi. Justice League comes out closer to that release. Obviously Disney spaced its two movies apart. So Thor Ragnarok has more time to make money before that juggernaut hits theaters. I don't know how Last Jedi is going to do, though. We'll see how that ad campaign continues to take shape. And that's going to also rely on many of the same factors. It's tough getting a emmovie to market. So Rotten Tomato scores. Last Jedi, word of mouth and press reaction. What's that social media reaction going to be when the embargo lifts for tweets? Usually the two embargoes are social media and then reviews. And social media usually is lifted first. So what's that moment going to be like? It was a turning point for Wonder Woman, the very strong reaction from press. Then the ad campaign. How strong is the ad campaign? Do they have any viral videos? What are the interviews like? Chris Hemsworth and Taika Waititi are going to shine here. They're both very clever and savvy at this and very funny. But don't underestimate the Justice League team. They have a big group of stars there that I'm sure they're going to send out. Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, and also, I don't know, Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa, they're wild cards because I love their energy, but they often seem very unprofessional. You don't see them and go, oh, this is going to be a professional film. You're like, oh, fingers crossed. I hope this works out. But Affleck and I think at this point Godot are movie stars. Then when it comes to DC in particular, we have to see what happens with this Joss Whedon controversy. I could see that being a problem for the film. You have to factor in not only will people see it for one viewing, but what's the repeat business going to be like? That's crucial to these movies reaching the high numbers that they're supposed to, what they're expected to right now. And then also this Joker origin story I do not think helps. Many people were like, you're crazy, DC, I can't take it anymore. And so eventually DC, and I'm surprised at, the Joker origin story, I think overall when you look at it, a couple hours later, maybe like 12 hours later at this point, it didn't go over very well. And so I think that hopefully Warner Brothers notices that, and they can't keep having negative stories. You have to build momentum. You have to have consumer confidence. And I think that the stories like the Joker origin story that broke last night do not create consumer confidence. So all those factors are gonna go in there. And they both have at least one more trailer to go. So hopefully none of them will jump the shark and show too much in their final trailers. All right, so that's the first viewer question. So I don't know, but if I had to guess right now, Thor Ragnarok might be too zany for the general public, but I think right now the trailer's done better, so I'm going to say Thor Ragnarok has a slight edge for box office. All right, so the second viewer question is from Kylie K. And Kylie K has a great question because, so often you guys ask about different jobs in the business, and I like that Kylie K asked about a very unique one. So Kylie said, hey, Grace, question. I'm interested in going into graphic design and would love to get into doing movie posters. Awesome. How would one go about that, and who is in charge of films, advertising, and posters? Love your show. Watch Morning Movie News every day. Aw, thank you. There's a BTT viewer named Scott DeMonico, and I'm hoping that he'll weigh in here because he works in an entertainment design agency which does exactly what you're talking about, Kaylee, for both movies and TV, as well as, I'm sure, other things. But he would know very well. But I would imagine that in terms of your education, you would want to go and study advertising and also graphic design. Now, the best thing that I could tell you to do is to get advice from the people who would be hiring you. So you should call up studio PR departments because they're one half of the equation. These things are done as a combination of in-house and out-of-house. So you want to call up the studio publicity departments, and you want to call up agencies, like entertainment design agencies, and ask them, what do you look for when hiring? What are the different positions? You might say, I'm specifically interested in movie poster design. What's more important to you, advertising or graphic design, or maybe, like a major and a minor? And for those of you who aren't in the United States, I don't know if that applies to you, but you can major in one area of study and then minor in another. And then also, do you have internships? I really cannot stress highly enough the importance of internships. If you know what you want to do, it's never too early to start calling up and saying, may I intern for you? It used to be now internships are tricky because, you have to get paid because a bunch of interns sued, as you might recall. So good luck with that. But everybody needs interns, so see what you can do. Remember, as I said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's not just with it getting your questions answered here on Morning Movie News, but with getting the job of your dreams. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Good luck, Kylie K. And then the fourth, this was an interesting one. I like this one. This is from Nelson Silva, who asked for some clarification with the box office. So Nelson says, hi, Grace, I have a question. It's not a great one. I think it is. But after a year wanting to make one, this is what I came up with. I love your honesty, Nelson, but it's a good question. I like it a lot. So Nelson says, why are the box office numbers in dollars and not numbers of tickets sold? I understand that from the business point of view, you would want the money count because it's a business, and as you so often point out. But to measure how popular a movie is, shouldn't we be looking at the number of seats sold, especially considering domestic versus foreign numbers since the ticket prices vary from country to country? Love your videos and have learned a lot, not only on the business side of movies, but also the creative, so thank you. Aw, my pleasure, Nelson. That means so much to me. Now, interesting, I would like to point out that the ticket price varies state to state, even here in the United States. Some people here pay like $8 to go to the movies, while here in New York City and also Los Angeles, it costs like $20 to go to the movies. And that's the starting point, not before the add-ons of 3D and IMAX. So anyway, the first answer is that, again, it's just like when they don't adjust for inflation. Nothing could compare to the early days of film, like Gone with the Wind, Sound of Music. As some of you have pointed out, when Gone with the Wind came out, it was the only thing you could do for entertainment. There was no television, so many more people went to the movies. So it would be embarrassing to allow people to know how much movie attendance probably has decreased over the decades, right? So they don't want to bring that up. They're like, no thanks. Especially now with streaming, they're like, we don't want anyone to know. let's just put the numbers in there, especially because they keep raising ticket prices and putting add-ons to make up for the losses in ticket sales, right? So that's one thing. Ticket sale perspective, not so rosy, because they can tweak the money situation. It's better, right? You can't really tweak how you count the number of tickets sold. Then the other reason is that, as you said, this is a business. Well, actually, the other point I had was that it's not particularly exciting to say how many tickets were sold. It's hard to really pinpoint that. Like if you say a movie opened with 100 million, the people reading the headline go, that's a lot of money. But if you say it sold, and actually that wouldn't be a ton of tickets actually. So let's say it sold 10,000 tickets and you think, well, it sold 10,000 tickets and there are 300 million people in the world. That's pretty bad. Most people didn't see Thor Ragnarok. So Marvel Disney would much rather have the $100 million opening headline, right? And that would even be low for what they want for Thor Ragnarok. So that's another reason. Now the other thing is that again, it's a business, as you pointed out. Movies are paid for with money. So the point of the box office is not only to make those headlines and to make you feel like you should see a film, but you want to see if that investment was successful, right? And you're not only talking about the budget, but the advertising costs, right? Did the studio get its money back? And did it make a tremendous profit? Or did it lose a lot of money? That's why I also think it's done with the amount of money that's been earned. I mean, they don't do it in different currencies either. They're doing it in the currency of the country spending the money on the movies. So, and they even translate foreign box office into dollars. Because, again, the number would mean nothing to us if they didn't. So anyway, that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for some wonderful questions. Please write down below what you think of today's top story, the 3 viewer questions, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow. And again, it's a slow time of year, so any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching, and you can check out some more videos right now.